Ileana Green. I am the Director of Community Engagement at the Hood Incubator, and we're excited to be doing our Teach Out series on New York's Seeding Opportunity Initiative and its 3 pilot programs that are within it. So today we did 3 sessions. This is the last of 3, where we will be discussing the retail program. And so we are excited that y'all who are able to join the first 2 sessions, and welcome to those who are just now joining for our last session on the retail program. And so I am joined today by my lovely co-host Shake, who is our lead organizer out in New York. Hey Shake, how are you?
I'm good. What's up, everybody?
What's going on? So Shake and I are both team members at the Hood Incubator. In the Hood Incubator, we empower drug war survivors to end the drug war, and we leverage the regulated cannabis industry to do this. So we believe that by ending the drug war, we can increase the health, wealth, power, and prosperity of drug war survivors, particularly Black communities, as we know that Black communities have been disproportionately harmed by this issue. And so we aim to do our work through 3 different prongs of work. We engage in economic development, in policy advocacy, as well as in power building. And so this presentation is a part of a public education and political activation programming that we have going through the end of the year. So our constituency generally as an organization is drug war survivors. But for this particular program, we are very intentionally hoping to organize with legacy operators and farmers of color. And that's due to the way that the structure is. We think that these are 2 groups who fall within that umbrella, who have a really high chance of being very successful in this industry. So we want to help folks as much as possible, make sure that they have access to information, make sure that they feel like they have a pipeline to share their thoughts on issues. And so to that note, we will also be asking you all a series of questions throughout this event. We really want to get feedback from folks on what you think of the rules, because that's important, particularly for this program. This program is still in the public comment phase, meaning that individuals are still able to voice their opinions to the regulators to say, hey, I don't think that X, Y, and Z that idea is that great. We should do, A, B, and C instead. And yeah, so I want to give an opportunity for Shake if you want to share anything about your position or what you do with us at the Hood Incubator.
Yeah, so basically I'm here to be an organizer for any league operator that wants to transition or anybody that wants to get a license. I'm here to organize for you. I could be reached at shake@hoodincubator.org, and I'm here to be assistance in any kind of way.
Nice. And I'm gonna drop Shake's email in the chat box. So any legacy operators who are interested in tapping in with us, please reach out to Shake.
Yes, please do. I'm here to help in any type of way.
So we have 3 programs within the Seeding Opportunities Initiative. This session is going over the Equity Owners Lead program. And we already covered 2 other sessions tonight. We had our Farmers First program, which is a program that creates conditional licenses for pre-existing hemp farmers. And we had the New York Cannabis Social Equity Investment Fund, which is a $200 million fund that's designed to support some of the folks who are in the Equity Owners Lead program. And so right now, we're going to go over the Equity Owners Lead program. So the program, what it is, it creates a conditional license for folks who, exclusively for folks who are justice involved, who have a history of owning a small business. And so the application fee is $2,000, and the conditional license lasts for 4 years. And so this is the first step where we want to kind of get you all's insight on what you think about some of the stuff in this. So yeah, Shake and I were talking and we were wondering, do folks feel like a $2,000 application fee, is that accessible for you? Is that something that you would be able to do? Right now, if the applications were open, Shake and I are going to go through who's eligible for the program. So I'm going to go through the nonprofits that are eligible. And we are also I'm gonna have Shake go through the individuals who are eligible. So for nonprofits to be eligible, they have to have a 501c status. They also have to be intentionally serving justice-involved individuals and communities with historically high rates of, incarceration or conviction rates or arrest rates. They have to be a social enterprise that's made a profit for at least 2 years, and they can show that through their tax returns. And they also have to have justice-involved folks who are sitting on their board as officers, and also have at least 5 times full employees. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Sheikh, who's going to discuss how individuals can be eligible for this program.
Well, individuals that are eligible for this program, you will have to have at least 10% in a business for 2 years, lived in New York, and have a marijuana conviction.
Yeah. So with that in mind, one question we want to ask is, who in the room has had a 10% or more ownership interest in a business that made a profit?
For the last 2 years.
Yes, because that's one of the requirements, that you have to have had a business for at least 2 years, and it doesn't have to be an active business, but at some point in the past, and for at least 2 years, you made some type of a profit, meaning that you went above breaking even. You did not lose money.
Correct.
And so now, we went over that you have to be justice involved to be eligible for this license, but what does that really mean? So to be justice involved, you have to be an individual who's been convicted of a marijuana related offense before legalization, which was March of last year. Additionally, if you have a parent, a legal guardian, a child, a spouse, or one of your dependents, or you're the dependent of someone else who has this type of conviction, you're also eligible. One thing that I do want to point out is that a sibling does not fall in this list. So while, my mom having a conviction makes me eligible, if my brother has a conviction, that does not make me eligible. Another thing that is not on this list is arrest. So if I got arrested, but it didn't lead to a conviction, I am not eligible for this program, as it's currently drafted. And so what cannabis convictions fall under that? So any offense that was in the quote unquote marijuana laws, and I put the law up there, that before they were repealed by legalization, so those count. A controlled substance offense, which is a different set of laws than the marijuana laws, but a controlled substance offense where the actual substance was marijuana. A loitering in the first degree, where the substance was marijuana. So essentially they're accusing you of loitering for the purpose of doing an illegal activity, and that underlying activity was marijuana related, or an expungible or sealable offense. And so, we ask what documents you need to show the existence of your business. So the rules make it very clear that for a nonprofit, you have to show you had 2 years of positive assets through your tax returns. But it's not so clear in terms of the individual, in terms of spelling out how to do that. But what I will say is that other parts of the rules make it a requirement that you are up to date on your taxes, that you're not delinquent, you don't owe any outstanding money. So with that information kind of together, we can logically assume that they'll probably be looking at your taxes as at least one of the documents concerning it.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, so what you think about this, Sheikh? We definitely want to get the folks their thoughts on what's going on with this, because like I said, these are drafted rules, so this is not permanent. So we want to see what you all think about these rules. So I'm going to launch a poll right now to see what your thoughts are on some of these issues. So Shay, can you walk us through some of the issues that you might, as folks are answering, some of the things that you think about these requirements?
Well, growing up in the neighborhood I have the privilege of able to have conversations with some of these people that have been impacted by the arrest on marijuana and stuff like that. And some of their concerns was they really don't know what falls under a marijuana conviction, because a lot of people get arrested for marijuana, but then they cop out to other things like a ACD, a disorderly conduct. So they don't really understand if that falls under the marijuana convictions. They would like to know more answers on that. And then when I speak to a lot of legacy operators, these are the ones that have the funds, and these are the ones that will be able to run this business successful because they've been doing it for a long time. But their challenge is they don't have the 2-year business. So my question to them was why you didn't, if you had the funds to be able to open a business. And their next answer was because that would have been money laundering. So they feel that this needs to be a little designed a little more, that it includes them instead of keeps them out. Because the way it's designed right now, they don't feel is including them.
That's a really important point, especially as we go through, which we're not there yet, but we'll see explicitly money laundering is a crime that will explicitly get you denied from this program. So we are happy that folks did not go that way. We don't want to commit crimes while we're committing crimes. So we're happy that folks didn't do that, but that is definitely something that is of concern that we want to raise the attention to folks. So if other folks feel the way that Shake feels about those comments, please express yourself within these questions. Yeah. So what level of ownership and control does the person have to have? So the eligible person has to have at least 51% of ownership or control of the business in aggregate with the eligible person and another justice impacted person. So for example, an aggregate means me and a family member can be an aggregate, me and my mother, for example. So if I have a qualifying business, but my mother does not, and we are both justice impacted, we can together own 51%. I fit that first requirement of I'm the justice involved person who has the qualified business, and then she's another additional justice involved person, but she does not fit the requirement. So second to that, the person who actually fits all the requirements has to own at least 30%. So in that scenario I just described, I would have to have 31%, and my mom could have the other 21% for us to meet that requirement. She could not have that 31% because despite her being justice involved, she does not fit the full qualifications of the program. One of the other things that we definitely want to talk through is what actually needs to go on the application. And so the application is a long list of things that needs to go on there. And actually, when you get our detailed report, you will see the full list. But I just, for the purpose of talking this through, highlighted the things that I thought would be of highlight to you all. So it's a host of financial information that you need to submit. You have to submit to a criminal background check. You have to submit a lot of information about the structure of the cannabis business that you're proposing, such as the organizational structures, the percentage of who owns what, who's involved. You have to reveal all of the funding sources that you use to start your business. And we, Shake and I were talking, we particularly see that, being a hindrance to folks, who are trying to encourage the transition from the legacy markets, both, them and farmers, as there are groups who traditionally have a distrust and are underrepresented in financial banking institutes. For example, in California, with some of our farming programs, folks did not trust banks. So people would come in with bags of cash to pay for items. So will that be a hindrance to folks, who don't have safe banking and don't feel like I can put my money in the bank, so I put it in my mattress? I just want to bring these things to folks' attention so that they can know what's going on and think about some of the repercussions of what these rules are.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So I'm sure everyone's real question is, how do they give out the licenses? And this I want you to pay attention to this because we have a whole bunch of questions that we want to ask you about these criteria. So in order to give out the license, it's a two-step process. So it's a combination of a competitive scoring process and a lottery system, which means a random selection. So first, people will be asked. So first, the state is going to break up the state of New York into geographic zones, and then they're going to ask applicants to rank, which zones do you have preference that you want to operate in. So you rank your zones. If there are too many people, if there are more applicants than there are licenses, which there likely will be, then they pull a pool of people who have selected that jurisdiction or that area as their number one choice. And then from that group of people, they judge them based on their justice involvement and based on their qualifying business. And so after, they judge folks based on those two criteria. After that point, if there's still too many people or if there's ties, then they have a random lottery system. So to back it up, first you have to meet the minimum criteria. You rank where you want to go. From there, they put you kind of in a competition with the other folks who have also applied to see how you rank against them. And then finally, there's a lottery. So currently, the regulations have not specified how much weight will go to any of these things. So it's just laid out some of the things that they'll consider, but they haven't said, how much weight. Like, will one thing be 100 points and one thing be 2 points? They haven't given any of those type of details. So we really have an opportunity, since they haven't even drafted anything, to really contribute to that from the very beginning, rather than trying to revise another idea. We can come up with the initial idea. So in terms of someone being justice involved, they look at whether the person was themselves convicted of a marijuana conviction, or alternatively, if it was a family member, because remember, a family member also grants you access. They consider your address, your primary residence at the time of the conviction, so your primary residence at the time of the arrest or the conviction, but you have to have a conviction. So, and they compare that residence to areas that, are historically have low incomes. They compare it to areas that have high rates of arrest and convictions. And they also look to see if you were given any form of public housing, whether that be in a project unit or in Section 8 or in any other types of subsidized housing. And so after they consider your justice involvement, they look at the evaluation of your qualifying business. So they'll look at the number of employees that work in the business. And so this is a business that you own for at least 2 years. This is not the future cannabis business that you want to run. Right. This is the business that's needed to qualify. Right. So they look at the number of employees. They look at the years that the business has been in operation. How long have you been up and running? Was it up for 2 years or 10 years? The type of business. So are you a retailer or are you a wholesaler? Do you have experience interfacing with the public? Do you have a physical location, or are you an Etsy store? And so they haven't said that you're at a disadvantage at your Etsy store, but they look at that. So that's definitely something we want to contribute to see, how much points should that weigh. And they also look to see if you've violated any other types of rules. So those are kind of the big picture of what they're going to be looking for. And so now at this point, we want to get your feedback on those points. And so I'm going to launch a poll and leave that up for about 2 or 3 minutes to get folks' idea on these issues. So for example, should a person get more points if their conviction was for a felony versus for a misdemeanor? Should a person get more points if the conviction was for distribution versus possession? Should we look at those differently, or should we look at those kind of all the same? Do we think that the eligibility should be expanded to people who, so that was the last question set. Actually, I was going to ask if the eligibility should be expanded to people with arrest, but that was the last question set. That is not this question set. Yeah, one of the big things that Shake and I were talking about is, so they asked for the number of employees, but we really want to see who those employees are. Are those people who have arrest and conviction histories? Are those people who live in the actual neighborhoods that are impacted by the war on drugs? Or, is it somebody from across town who doesn't have any relationship to the issues of the war on drugs? So, wanting to see beyond just the numbers. That is going directly into, the evaluation of our public comments. And so we'll also, even if you don't have a chance to complete everything right now, we're going to be sending this out with the report next week in terms of the summary of what we've gone over. So we ask folks, to please spread that link to your friends so that if folks who are justice involved, we can get their feedback on it as well. And so now I'm going to wrap up this poll. And if you didn't get a chance to vote, we definitely encourage you to still do so when we send out the poll questions after this. And so now I want to turn it over to Shayna to kind of walk us through, to walk us through some of the reasons why you might be denied a license.
Money laundering,
That's the
fraud,
top one.
fraud.
Definitely. So if you've been convicted of those offenses that are related to having a business within the last 3 years, you'll be automatically excluded, even if you meet the other requirements. So as Sheikh said, fraud is at the top of that list, and money laundering. What's some other reasons you might get denied?
Some other reasons people could be not denied is the background check.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't submit your background check that you're supposed to, they'll automatically deny you.
Any convictions in the last 3 years that had to do with what I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Shady business.
Yeah, and they haven't defined how they're quantifying that. You know, if your business has a threat of diverting cannabis to the black market. So we definitely want to put some strong parameters around that if they're going to continue to use that language, so that it is not disproportionately, disqualifying legacy operators who we think should be prioritized, who have experience in the retail sector selling this exact product, and have been chastised for it already. They should be, prioritized and incentivized to transition into the regulated market. So we definitely don't want to unnecessarily put hindrances up just because.
Forgery, moral character. I'm not too sure what they mean about moral character though.
And that's another thing. So that term was not defined in these rules, nor was it defined in the actual law of the cannabis law. So we definitely want to put some parameters on what quote unquote good moral character means, so that our folks are not just being denied left and right on an arbitrary term that doesn't have a definition.
Correct.
So now, Sheikh, I want to ask you, what are some of the limitations of you having this license?
You can't sublease, meaning you can't rent out to another individual.
Right. So if you get money from that fund, or if you get property from the fund that we talked about in the last session, it is the state's property. They're letting you borrow it. You cannot let anybody else sublease it.
You can't have no other interest in any other license, like cultivation, distribution, or processing.
Right.
And y'all went over that in the last slides.
Right. New York has a two-tier system, meaning that you cannot vertically integrate. You cannot control the entire production line from seed to sale. So they have a front end that's kind of touching consumers, which is like the delivery, the retail, and then they have a back end, which is actually producing the crop itself.
And you can't have no more than 3 retail locations.
Right. And so, we know that the license lasts for 4 years, and after 2 of those years, you have to submit a reapplication. So, Shay, can you tell us how you hold on to the license after that 4-year period ends?
Well, if you're doing everything good and you're following all the rules, 120 days before the 4 years is up, you will have to let the office know that that's what you want to continue to do, and they will make their decision from there.
Yep. And so that's how you hold on to the license. And so that largely, covers a big portion of the program. We'll start to go through some questions in a minute. But, for just a recap, you have to be justice involved, meaning fit within those certain convictions or certain family members that fit within those convictions, not arrest. You have to have had a history of owning a business for at least 2 years where it made a profit. So I think I vaguely saw someone write, how much of a profit. So it doesn't specify. It just specifies you cannot have lost money during those 2 years. So the eligibility requirement, as long as you make $1, you're eligible. Now, the real question is how much weight will that have in the competitive scoring? And the answer is we don't know yet. But in terms of eligibility, if you made $1, you went above breaking even, you fit into the minimum eligibility.
Correct.
Yeah, so and there's also certain social enterprises that are going to be eligible as well. Yeah. And so as a recap, you know, the dope things that we see about this program is that, you know, they are specifically making sure that the first 1 to 200 licenses go to justice impacted individuals. We definitely want to get more data and criteria on what the pool of people is that qualify given the restrictions and, you know, all of the issues that Shake pointed out, particularly with the business ownership requirement. But we are nonetheless excited because most other states have not even made this attempt in terms of saying that we are going to prioritize this first group of people for justice involved people. So despite the fact that we definitely have some feedback and some ways to improvement, this is hugely progressive in comparison to the rest of the country. The Farmers First program, we're excited to see that the folks who are coming through that program are required to support social equity applicants. And we're really hoping that some distressed farmers, which includes farmers of color, will go through that mentorship program. And then finally, we're excited to see that the equity fund is going to be available at the forefront of the industry, as this is the first state to do that. You know, and you guys are, I'm sure, already aware of our concerns with this program, you know, but we're concerned about the requirement for folks to own a business. We think that it's going to disqualify a lot of the people who we think will do the best in this business, which is folks who already have experience selling cannabis. We are concerned that the criteria does not expand to include arrest for individuals. So people who might have been arrested multiple times and had the good fortune of not having to have a conviction due for whatever reason, taking a plea, this, that, or the third, but nonetheless, they still face many collateral consequences due to their arrest. So we think that we're concerned that those folks are not eligible. And we're also concerned that the immediate family members of a sibling is not eligible for a conviction of a sibling, as we know that has a real impact on a family. You know, if my brother is incarcerated and we are putting books on his money and we have to take care of him, that definitely impacts the family in a way that is worthwhile for us to recognize within this program. And then for the cultivation and processing, our biggest issue is that this is being pulled from a sector that is already non-diverse and not very equitable, and that is the hemp sector, which is largely very white right now in the state of New York. So we are concerned that directly having the streamline from hemp into adult use cannabis will further put our farmers of color at a disadvantage. But we are really excited to see that there's going to be the social equity requirement for folks to mentor people. And then finally, for the fund, we are concerned about folks not being able to navigate, a loan of this size. $1.5 million loan is pretty hefty, particularly for someone who might not have had a loan before ever. So we're really concerned.
Not know how to manage that.
Yes. It's going to be a lot of bookkeeping, a lot of financial literacy that many of us, including myself, I don't know how I would manage a $1.5 million loan. I don't even know how I'm managing my student loans. So I definitely can't manage a $1.5 million loan. So we really want to make sure that there's this support in place to have financial experts to help folks navigate through that. So yeah, we want to open it up for questions. For folks who have questions, I see that we have some in the chat that we'll start to go through to see, what folks think about the program. And we really want you guys to apply for our social equity roundtable, which Shake is going to be super involved in. Shake's going to be all through the state of New York, organizing our legacy operators. So definitely tap in with her.
I'm excited about this one. Tap in, please get involved, my peoples.